Hi folks, I'm Sheila and welcome to Counsellor Convos. Let's get stuck in. Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Counsellor Convos. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sheila McMahon. I'm a registered mental health counsellor. And for this podcast, this is something that's quite dear to my heart, and it's about food and mood. And we come here with no expectation, seeing how it all goes. So please let me welcome my fabulous guest, Alison Taylor.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you here. So, Alison, if you're okay to introduce yourself in a way that feels comfortable for you, please.
Yes, of course. I mean, Sheila, I think, how long have we known each other? 10 years or so now?
I was thinking about that the other day. I'd say it's probably more than 15, actually.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Time flies. So my background is teaching as a home economics, food, nutrition, textiles, all those practical child development subjects, which I absolutely loved. I've run my own business in health and wellbeing now for 18 and a half years. But essentially, I'm a health coach, and I'm just somebody who believes in using common sense. I think my father always used to say, use your 18 pence, Alison. And I think at last it's beginning to come true. Yes.
Absolutely, and that is true from what I know of Alison. You know, she says it how it is, and how wonderful is that. So, as mentioned, we're going to be talking about mood and food, and it is such a complex subject, because you have, you know, the practical side of things, the logical advice that we can give people, but then you have that emotional side, which personally I very much been through with a complex relationship with food, where for me, when I was a young girl, food was very much a coping mechanism. So even though I would overeat, for me it was a source of comfort. But then if you overeat too much, you pile on too much weight, and that can make you miserable too. Sound familiar, Alison?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
You know, so your initial thoughts then, food and mood, what's your thoughts straight away?
I think people underestimate how much the gut and the brain are connected. And when we say, you know, I feel, you know, I can feel it in my gut, or gut intuition and all of that, and it's the brain and it's the vagus nerve, and the messages are going back and forth. And there's so much emphasis on eating the right sort of foods. And it, you know, that we can explore further. But I think people totally forget that the brain is an organism that is a very hungry organism, and it needs the right stuff. And if you don't give it that, not only in food, but I think it's all of those health pillars. It's the exercise, it's the fresh air, it's the decent amount of sleep, it's, you know, the companionship. It's all the things that we know to go to make up a healthy life. But we underestimate that the brain is an organ. And, you know, what goes on in our brain, what goes on in our mind needs feeding and needs nourishing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Alison. And going back about the gut health, did I hear somewhere, it might have been on your own podcast recording, about the gut being classed as a second brain?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible, actually. There are, you know, as I say, it's the vagus nerve, and there are direct sort of, you know, feelings and emotions. It's where our hormones are made. It's where our enzymes are made. And consequently, there is this correlation between, you know, our gut and how we feel. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we go back to that gut instinct, you know,
Yes.
with our emotions. So actually, our gut very much does dictate our mood. And if we're putting, you know, unhelpful stuff into our gut, well, I suppose then it makes sense that it is going to affect our mood. However, I always like to add a different perspective that, you know, for some people, even myself now, I still use food sometimes as a coping mechanism. I just don't eat as much as I used to. So I'm able to manage that a lot better. So it's that fine balance. It's like, for example, you know, when I was doing a bit of research on this beforehand, and they were going on so much of how dark chocolate, you know, that's good for you, that's good for good health. and more or less kind of, dissing milk chocolate. Not that. Now, I love milk chocolate. And I do know that, that there's plenty of times when I have that treat, that kind of, a bar of chocolate, not 10 bars, as I might have had on elderly years ago. But I'm very happy eating that bar of chocolate. It's like when you see the Galaxy ad and, she's eating the chocolate. Of course, I love the way she's always very slim, young, all this sort of stereotyping. I just want to put it out there that, when I really fancy some chocolate, and I almost practice mindfulness with chocolate, that when I sit there and eat it, I really love the sensations of that chocolate.
Yeah.
And, and if somebody was to say, mood and food and that milk chocolate's bad for you, I would disagree and say, no, I think it's the amount you have.
It's not only the amount, but what I would sort of say to you is there's something called the bliss point, okay? Which is when the salt, sugar, and fat are put together in a particular combination that is addictive.
Okay.
And if I tell you that the food companies invest in body scans and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds putting somebody through a body scan and feeding them a Galaxy chocolate or other chocolate bars are available to see what happens to the brain, and then they tweak the recipe according to what is happening to your brain waves. So when you realise what they are doing behind the scenes, it makes you think, it might make me feel good, but it's making an awful lot of businessmen very rich. And they are doing it deliberately, not to feed you, not to make you feel good. They are doing that in order to make their profits for their shareholders. And that, the more you learn about that, then the more. But you're quite right. I mean, there are certain foods that definitely make you feel good. And we always link it with rewards, don't we? I mean, how many times as parents do we give our children sweets? I mean, we used to at school, and I can remember in primary school, if you're good and you'd finished your reading book, you get a Smartie. Alison, what are we doing?
Alison, I just had an image in my head of little Johnny winning the race. There you go, Johnny. There's a lovely carrot for you.
Yes, it doesn't work, does it?
But of course, the packaging, the weight was it. And you're right. I'm very mindful that myself already, I said about it, I like to have a treat. And you know what? I'm really mindful of all of this. And I suppose I love informed choices. I love when we know what this was, like when you said about the Galaxy and the way the amount that they put in, all the sweets are available. When they do, making businessmen rich and stuff like that, that still wouldn't put me off enjoying that.
No, it won't, because you will get the dopamine rush, you will get the serotonin support because of the combination that they've put together. But you can gradually change your taste buds and go for the dark chocolate. It's a little bit more sophisticated. For me, it's a glass of wine and some olives. Absolutely love it. But it's an understanding, and we will all have different taste buds. And to be honest, if I'm angry with something, I will quite often go and have a chocolate bar. Well, no, and actually, no, I probably wouldn't. But I'll go and have some food. I will go into the fridge and I'll have something to eat. And if I'm really happy, I will go and have a glass of wine to celebrate. Food and mood is very, very emotionally driven, and it stems from our childhood. It stems from the way we are rewarded, and then you get all of the cultural significance of foods and birthday cakes and family meals and family tensions. It's an incredibly complex picture. Yeah,
it really is, because you think about all those influences. I mean, there's so many avenues we could go already, Alison, with the stuff that you're bringing up. The way it's equated to a treat. I mean, there's so much the way that in the media that food is associated almost with every single occasion. And I tell you something else, that's the bit I don't agree with. Whatever about the businessmen earning loads of money about getting that bliss point and stuff like that, what I don't don't agree is kind of when we look at some of the media out there, the way that so much is in our face with food. You deserve this, have a treat. It's almost like that, that certainly for myself and with all the counselling training, you can see how much the brainwashing that goes on to pull people in. I mean, you look at the food industry now, and there's so much now about going out for meals, eating late. It makes it so much harder, and it makes it so much easier for people to be addicted.
Yes, it is literally an addiction. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. There's a
Want to say that book again, Alison? Say that again.
Yeah, sugar is more addictive than cocaine. There's a fabulous book that I used to use when I was teaching way back in the 70s, and it's called Pure, White and Deadly by Professor John Yudkin. It's all about sugar. And it's cheap, which is why it's put in foods. And I still have this wonderful image when Jamie Oliver, was going on one of his health campaigns, and he was in America, and the flavoured milk is more popular than just ordinary traditional milk. I mean, obviously we get all the different plant milks now, but he was, I think it was just one state in America. It wasn't the whole, or one county, sorry, within a state. And he filled one of those bright yellow school buses, and he filled it with sugar. Can you imagine? It was coming out of the windows, and he was trying to get over to the parents that this is the amount of sugar your children are consuming just in flavoured milk. And when you start to see the proportions and the fact that, yes, sugar might make you feel good, all right? And, and you think, right, I deserve it. I'm feeling fed up. I'll have a chocolate bar. But you then get the dip.
Yeah.
And what's really good, and it's an experiment that anybody who's listening to this podcast can try, is over the next couple of weeks, is try some different foods. Try a nice piece of salmon and see and record, how do you feel 2 hours later? Have a boiled egg. How do you feel 2 hours later?
Yeah.
Have a muffin from Costa, or the coffee shops are available. Have a muffin and see, how do you feel just an hour or 2 hours later? And when you start to see the link between what that food is doing to your mood and your energy levels a couple of hours later, then you can start to make some more informed choices and give the stuff that's going to give your brain the energy it needs, the level of emotion that it needs, rather than its up and down, which doesn't serve us either physically, because we know of, obviously, a tremendous number of diseases are related to that sugar spikes and that roller coaster, as well as the fact that it just doesn't make you feel good afterwards. And then there's all the guilt that comes with it as well. You can feel mighty blooming proud of yourself if you had a boiled egg for breakfast rather than a breakfast cereal. Feel good. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know what, Alison? Again, it all goes back to informed choices.
Yes.
And education. I love that idea about the trial and error test, and to have certain, foods. And it is about informed choices. Like, for example, I've had a full day of seeing clients. We were talking about this beforehand. I'm really tired. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. And look, I mean, like, the thing is, for myself, I'm obviously, as a counsellor, I'm very much each their own. Do you know what I mean? Like, people make those choices.
Yeah.
Respecting that. For myself, I am aware of the knock-on effects of food. So for me, it's about in moderation for me. Do you know what I mean? That have something, that you want and stuff like that. But I'll also have the healthy stuff as well. But it's interesting, like, even with this podcast, it was like, I would usually have like a chocolate yogurt or something like that now. And that was in the fridge. And I thought, no, I will have a banana because I know the banana will just feel better. I will perform better by having the banana, which I did do. And it's very much like a conscious choice. I think it's that sort of thing when we're really kind of on autopilot. I think we have to be so careful of this because our lives can be so busy, and then it's kind of, we don't prioritize these unconscious choices that we're making, and then we're thinking, how do we get here? And let's bear in mind stuff we've already highlighted, the way, the industry with the sugar and the addiction, and just trying to make us all like zombies. Sugar. What was the latest thing, Alison? Did you see that about there was a children's drink? It came out last week or the week before, where they wanted to ban it because there was something actually in the drink that was directly damaging towards kids.
I didn't see that one. No, I'll have to catch up with that.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody will put it on the chat. If they know what I'm talking about, please do. Like, honestly, I definitely think informed choices is what this is all about.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why I think I got very upset that home economics, which was such a wonderful subject to teach both boys and girls on nutrition, on meal planning, meals on a budget, meals for the elderly, meals for young children, and how to actually cook. You know, we used to have a whole morning or a whole afternoon, so you could really cook and look at what you'd made, not one of these 1 hour lessons in, out, boom, no chance to discuss it. And then it sort of changed to food technology, where we were having to teach what they eat in space and HACCP, you know, hazard analysis and critical control points. And therefore you're losing a whole generation of people who don't understand the nutrients in their food, and how just sitting down each weekend and just look at your week. Where are the stress points? When am I going to be busy? What meals do I need? What food have I got in? All right. And if you're in a hurry and you're hungry, beans on toast, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't, but it is about that informed choices, because you've got the knowledge and you can, you know, and they say, you know, good food is expensive. Yes, some fresh foods are expensive, but lentils and pulse vegetables and kidney beans, they're rich in protein and they're really cheap, particularly if you buy the dried ones, but you have to plan because they've got to be soaked the night before. So it's about giving your body what it needs, because if you give your body what it needs, your brain will get what it needs and your mood will be more consistent. You'll be able to better cope when things get thrown at you, you know. And it's that ability to be able to make that choice. But because of the way in which the advertising works, as you're saying, we are bombarded with food adverts. The way in which, you know, there's so much, you know, that people, you know, superfood, a load of rubbish, you know, food is food.
Tell us as it is then, Alison. Tell us about superfoods.
Broccoli's a lovely vegetable, all right, but it's no necessarily better than a cauliflower or a piece of cabbage. You know, but it's, you know, and it's just trends, and blueberries and you know, now that apparently now the trend is protein. Well, to be honest, when I was teaching it, protein was always the core of every meal, because if you have sufficient protein, you will feel fuller for longer. Meat, fish, eggs, cheese and milk. Lentils and red beans and pulse vegetables if you're going down the vegan route. But it's simple. You base your meals around that. Every meal, base it around that. And then you can start to fill in with whatever seasonal vegetables are. All right, so that your body's getting the variety. And it's not difficult. And you can make it really interesting, and they don't take long to cook, you know, and there is so much out there to help. But again, there's a huge amount of misinformation. And, you know, there's some people that, you know, will come on and I'll recommend. But particularly when you think about making informed choices, when you realize how we are manipulated, just look at if you go into W.H. Smith's, just look at all the sweets and sugars while you're queuing up to buy a paper or a birthday card. And, you know, I remember having an interesting discussion with one of the cashiers. I mean, it's not her responsibility. But it's, you know, and if you think about it in some sort of areas where the local corner shop has closed down because of the cost of business rates, and therefore another fried chicken shop comes in. And therefore the distance, and if you haven't got your own transport, how are you going to go to one of the supermarkets where they'll be buying in bulk and therefore offer things, you know, carrots at 5p or whatever the latest was over Christmas? It's about, you know, sometimes we are manipulated in a way which we don't even realise, and therefore our informed choices are getting narrowed because somebody else is making the decisions for us on how food is presented to us, how fresh ingredients are presented to us. And it gets, as I say, incredibly complex. Yeah.
Alison, that is such a poignant point that you making there. That sometimes we're manipulated and we don't even know it. We
Yeah.
don't, and that is an actual fact because I see it all the time. Like when I'm working with different clients, we look at so many different factors to somebody's mental health. So of course, food is one of those factors. And like I was just thinking, like I come from a time like growing up on a farm where we grew some of our own foods, and I
Yeah.
will never forget, like we used to grow our own lettuce, we used to grow our own carrots, our own potatoes. Well, I tell you something, I've never tasted lettuce like the lettuce I ate when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Mm,
Fresh carrots,
yeah.
like food that, like vegetables and fruit that's in season is beautiful, like
Yes.
strawberries
Yeah.
and raspberries. That when you actually kind of look at it, there's so many amazing, tasty foods out there. So, okay, so I'm mindful. We're a good full of 15 minutes in, and I'm thinking there could be listeners out there going, right, can we cut to the chase? I want to eat more healthier foods to boost
Yep.
my mood. What would Alison and Sheila recommend? Go for it, Alison.
Okay. Protein at the core of every meal.
Okay.
Okay. So any sort of meat, all right, cheese, fish, eggs, milk, all right. And as I say, lentils, all of those sort of pulse vegetables, cannellini beans, butter beans, all of those, all right, as a core. So you start your meal with that, including your breakfast. And then you try and eat wherever you can, seasonally, if you can. All right, mind you saying that James Dyson is now making and growing strawberries in his big sort of, multi-robot led sort of contraptions. But, I wouldn't buy strawberries in the winter. But, maybe James Dyson will change my mind on that. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
But you want to eat, all right, so protein at the core. Then you want to have 30 different plant foods a week. And people are going, I thought it was just
Exactly.
I thought it was just 5 vegetables a day or 5 pieces of fruit and vegetables a day. No, the Canadians have been recommending 10 for about 40, 50 years, 10 a day. But you need different plant foods.
Okay.
So we're talking about maybe some pasta and some rice and potatoes. Don't always have the same. That's a plant food, okay?
Yeah.
Putting some chia seeds on your yogurt, having a banana one day and an orange the next day. That's interesting, actually. I'm just thinking of one of my colleagues, and I won't mention any names, but she's had incredible mental health problems.
Mm-hmm.
I've only just thought about it. She only ever had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because we were living abroad then. It was jelly, what we call jam, but peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch.
Wow.
And I've never made that connection. That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't think it necessarily is a connection because I know the family history.
Yes, but it might be a
that.
factor. It might be.
Yeah,
When
who
it
knows?
comes to mental illness, there's lots of different factors.
Yeah, and we'll talk about appetite shortly. But 30 different plant foods, because then your gut is getting lots and lots of different ingredients. So it's happy. Your gut microbiome goes, well, this is rather nice. Okay, and therefore it flourishes and your immune system is stronger.
Yeah.
Wherever you can, ditch the sugar. Don't buy sugar in. Look at what's the sugar content. And remember that the manufacturers are going to be very clever. Anything generally ending in an OSE is a sugar.
Okay.
So glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, all right, galactose. So because they put it in that form, they move it further down the list of ingredients.
Yeah.
All right. So it can trick you. If it's got more than 5 ingredients on the back of the packet, put it back on the shelf.
Okay.
It's not worth your money. Okay. If it's got ingredients on there that you don't recognize as you wouldn't have in a normal kitchen cupboard, put it back on the shelf. You don't want it. Okay. So protein, lots of different plant foods. All right. And that really is, using, just cabbage finely shredded up and put in a pan, with a little bit of oil, with a lid on. It's all crisp.
So,
yes.
Alison,
But make your own.
come on, Alison. We need to compromise on this, okay? I'm
Right,
thinking
okay.
cabbage, but I love coleslaw.
Right, okay, that's fine. But I'll bring you some cabbage in, cooked with caraway seeds and peppercorns. It's absolutely gorgeous. But you want a rainbow of foods. All right. Your plate should look like a rainbow. It should look colourful. If it looks all beige, then there's something chronically missing. you know, even if it just means you put a few frozen beans on there or a few frozen peas or something, but it shouldn't look beige, because that way you're getting the fiber, you're getting all those micronutrients, you know, your minerals and your vitamins. And remember, we can't store protein and we can't store vitamin C. So you need this every day.
Yeah.
All right. You can't just say, well, I had, you know, a nice piece of fish and some broccoli yesterday, so I'm all right today. No. It will have taken the nutrients it needs, it will have excreted the rest, and you've got to start from square one every day on that. So it's about recognizing that. Healthy fats are absolutely fine, all right? Ditch the low-fat spreads, ditch the low-sugar yogurts, all right? Put them back on the shelf and buy the real stuff, okay? If you just look on your back of your low-fat spreads, the range of ingredients in those.
So you're saying you're actually far better off to get the full fat spread, the full yogurt, than...
Buy butter.
Yeah.
Buy butter, yeah, okay. And I know vegans would struggle with that, but literally, yes, buy those. But also, you see, anything that's low fat or low sugar, they've taken out the fat and the sugar.
Yeah.
And therefore, they've got to put something in. So they'll put in modified starch, which your body's just going to break down to sugar. So it's really, and you can taste them. If you taste a good Greek yogurt compared with a low-fat yogurt, you can actually taste the powderiness.
You actually can, you're right. Exactly that. I remember when I did Slimming World years ago, and other diet clubs are available. I'm not into diet clubs anymore, I can tell you. And but that's just a personal thing. And but I remember that at the time, myself and everybody else were having these Muller Light yogurts, because there were only a certain amount of sins. Because it would be sins when we'd be brought up Catholic Ireland. But anyway,
yes,
that one, Alison. But when I remember the taste, it actually makes me feel a bit sick to taste one of those now, because I'm so much more informed. I'm so much more aware of the powdery stuff kind of going into you. But I just think there is no nutrients in this, and I think as well as that, it is about being mindful instead of mindless.
Yeah, and just literally having some overnight oats, all right, and some plain yogurt on it, and then just put some fruit on it, and and some seeds. And there are some companies online that do some really good range of nuts and seeds that are much, much cheaper, and buy them when they're on special offer. Again, this is about planning and shopping smart and not being manipulated.
Sorry, Alison, I have a question coming into my head. Are nuts not just nuts? So, for example, if you think of the cheaper supermarkets, your Aldi's, your Lidl's, your stuff like that, and they'll have range of nuts and stuff like that. Now you can get those in Sainsbury's, and make your way up, whatever. But are nuts just nuts, or is there something they're doing to them depending on where they're
No, nuts are absolutely fine. But again, make ideally unsalted. Because although we do need some salt, again, salt is added to so many different things, like sugar is. It's cheap and it encourages the taste buds. But also just literally make sure some of the sort of like the trail mixes and those, they're very, very high in sugar. But just a handful of cashew nuts, a handful of almonds, and they have got so many of those other phytonutrients in them. They've got so many of the other minerals. I mean, selenium, all right. Walnuts are brilliant.
Yeah, okay? I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, and just toast it up. And to be honest, I now make my own granola because I'm just fed up with what they put in. And I just have a sprinkle. It's so easy to make.
Alison, with the walnuts. Now, a walnut whip. Are you familiar with a walnut?
It's sugar. Bin it.
No, I've been eating walnut whips all my life. Does that not
That explains a lot, Sheila.
Does that not count as my one a day?
Okay, all right. And I'll be honest, there was a time, and I suppose it was when I was uncertain of where I was going in life, but I can remember, and I think I was probably at the end of college. I don't think I'd started teaching. And I can remember I would go from kiosk to kiosk when there used to be little kiosks, selling chocolate bars and things like that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go without buying a Crunchy or a Mars bar. And it did become addictive. And I don't know how I got myself out of it, but I can remember thinking, this is ridiculous.
Do you know what,
You know?
Alison? I was
Yeah.
only thinking of that earlier on today. I remember where there was a time in my life where I could not have any chocolate in the fridge. I literally used to think the chocolate was talking to me, and it was
Yeah.
literally eat me, eat me. Like without a doubt, I was addicted at one stage in my life because if it was there, I had to eat it. The
Yeah.
only way I could manage it was not having it in the house. Like now, we've chocolate in the fridge, it doesn't bother me at all. But like I had to really think about that. That I mean, it
Mm.
is so addictive, and like this thing about us being manipulated, we really
Mm.
are, Alison. You know, I know I'm going back to that again, but we are actually because of
Yes.
money,
Yeah.
because of agenda.
Absolutely.
And so then knowing then what is good for us, the nuts, the seeds, pumpkin seeds.
Oh, well, then brilliant. Sunflower seeds, flax seeds, all of those.
Yeah,
Cashew nuts, almonds, walnuts. I've got a friend who's what? It's not manic depression. What do they call it now?
bipolar.
Bipolar. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she absolutely swears by having 5 Brazil nuts a day. Now,
Really?
she takes some other supplements as well. Okay, but
Yeah.
she Liz always says that's what she needs is the 5 Brazil nuts a day. And I
Yeah.
would imagine it's probably the selenium and other sort of minerals in there.
Yeah.
But it's not only choosing the right food, but it's also trying to eat mindfully. Don't eat on the rush. Don't eat when you're
Yeah.
walking. If you don't feel hungry when you get up, I mean, I always believe in a really, really good breakfast, but you don't have to have it first thing.
Yeah.
If work allows you to, have a drink, have a hot drink. I would start the morning, I must admit, with a hot water and lemon and then my shot of aloe. But then I would always make sure that I personally, now that I'm very lucky that I can dictate my own working hours, I will then go for some exercise. So I'll go to yoga or I'll go for my swim and then come home and have breakfast.
Yeah.
But if you can, just literally have something to drink, get yourself hydrated, and then perhaps in the morning break, have your breakfast. If you can do some overnight oats in a little kiln jar and layer it all up with some different fruits and things like that,
Yeah.
that will keep you going till well beyond lunchtime.
Yeah.
And you are going to feel an awful lot better. What is it my gran used to say? She was a lovely Victorian. Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dine like a pauper.
Oh, okay.
And because if you eat late at night, again,
Yeah.
that's going to affect your sleep. Having caffeine after lunchtime will affect your sleep. It might not when you're sort of in your 20s and 30s.
What?
I know. Sorry,
I'm just gonna
I'm on my ginger tea.
I just want to put my cup of coffee away. You didn't see the cup of
Yeah.
coffee in my wacky
Okay.
little mug.
And it is about when you eat and how you eat. And we know that still in Europe, where the cultures, where in Spain, Italy, France, where the families eat together, it's a community. They share the
Yeah.
cooking. It's not all down to one
Yeah.
person who has to come
Yeah.
in and stressed and deal with it. Oh, now I've got to cook a family meal. And the temptation then is to do something that's really sort of quick and easy or ready made. But it's that family community. They're eating fresh foods, they're eating seasonally, but they're eating together. And that's important. Having your meal on the train in front of the TV, we all do it, okay?
Yeah.
And now the children have gone, but eating mindfully, eating together, because you're
Yeah.
also talking and communicating.
Yes.
And therefore, a lot of the pressures that have gone on or things that are worrying you or other people in the family can say, well, you're a bit quiet today. Is everything okay? You've got that opportunity to have that discussion over a relaxed meal. And it's about planning and having that whole approach, isn't it? It's not just what we eat, but when and
Yeah.
how we eat as well.
And just want to say, like me, for a lot of people, like definitely myself, I love food. I get
Oh, yeah.
so much pleasure from food. And, I know that I've heard this about it takes a while for the food to work its way through the body. So you're still eating, not realizing you're full. That actually, the more you can take your time, the more you can actually listen to whether you've had enough or not.
Yes. Yeah.
My thinking is, well, I like my food anyway. Why would I want to rush it? So it's like if me and my husband have a steak dinner, it drives him mad because about 15 minutes later, I'm still talking into every single piece because I enjoy it so much. And what I know is that it's like I give myself this time to hear, oh no, I am feeling full now. I have had enough and stuff like that. So there's something about listening to that. Gosh,
Yes. Yeah.
there was another thing I wanted to bring up, actually, is a thing called being hangry, and that's being hungry and angry. And it's that thing that, like, I often have this in sessions and stuff like that with couples, that are miscommunication, and you're kind of asking, is there something else that could have been going on there? And when they really start thinking more about it, sometimes the person's actually hungry, and it comes out as hanger,
Yes.
And it comes out where, that like that, you talk about mood and food, and they're angry, and they're irritable, and the opposite too, when you're too full as well. And then, like, I know for myself, I hate the feeling of being too full, and I think that is one of the things in how I've managed myself, whereas I used to have food very much as a massive coping mechanism, but I didn't know when to stop. And it is about that listening to your gut, that it's kind of fall in love with your body again, listen, it's really loving your body.
Yeah, and just treat it with respect, because, as I say, if we're respecting our body, we're respecting our brain.
Yeah.
But also, one of the things when people think they're hungry, quite often they're thirsty, and people are seriously hydrated. And we know that lack of water can lead to anxiety. It can make you weepy, brain fog, lack of focus, irritable, low mood. Exactly the same symptoms with sugar, but that's got a physiological effect as well. But it's sometimes just literally making sure you've got some water, and just literally keeping yourself hydrated. So important.
Yeah, Alison, if any people from Business First are listen to this podcast, they will recall Alison banging on about, have you drank enough water? We've heard that one for years, but it is so true. Anytime if I want to lose weight, like last year when I wanted to fit into the old wedding dress and knock a few stone off myself, the main key thing was actually drink a pint of water. And I drink a pint of water before each meal, and that made a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely, because you can't actually digest your food properly if you're dehydrated. You can't actually metabolize your food if you're dehydrated. It really does make a huge difference. But there's some really good people. Dr. Mindy Peltz is one I would always recommend if you want to talk about appetite, and particularly with hormones. Her work on menopause and food and that sort of things is absolutely brilliant. She is American.
Alison,
so some of her food suggestions.
How do you spell?
Mindy. Yeah, Mindy Pelz. Dr. Mindy Peltz. Another one I would always recommend as well is Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, and he does a weekly podcast. Dr. Rangan, Rangan, Rangan Chatterjee.
Anybody is listening to this and not watching this on the YouTube channel, Alison's reaction was brilliant, which I didn't have a clue how to spell that one. Alison, the teacher in you never leaves. Why do I feel like I've been told off of my teacher by just the look?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, go on, can you spell his name again, please?
Rangan.
GN. Okay, good stuff.
And Chatterjee. Chatterjee. I'd have to write it down. Chatterjee. I think it's a J. Yeah, Chatter. Oh, I've got his books on my shelf. I ought to look, shouldn't I?
She doesn't know. She's not perfect. She doesn't know it all.
Yeah, there we go. Look.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, so that's the one. So if you're thinking about fasting, and because, again, for appetite control, it's fascinating. Don't do it just blind. Find out the science behind it. But when you read the science behind it, it is absolutely fascinating.
Interesting title, Fast Like a Girl.
Yes, yeah, because she's talking about the hormones. Very, very, very interesting there. As I say, I would never sort of, because obviously, strong food disorders like bulimia and anorexia are very, very much emotional and very, very serious. But that, for anybody that feels that they're just not quite sure what's happening, and particularly through menopause, and they're feeling very bloated, very brain foggy, or whatever, just take a look at her work and then make your own decision. I found that was invaluable. And this one, again, anything by Patrick Holford.
Oh, okay.
If you've got a digestive disorder, I would always recommend. If you've got anything that you think you've got some IBS or leaky gut or anything like that, eating protein, eating a variety of foods, eating the rainbow will make a difference. But that one is very, very good.
There you go, folks. So plenty of places to have a look.
Yes, yeah.
And as well as that, Alison also is part of Forever Living, and I've been having the yellow stuff, the pure aloe. I've been having that for, I think, about 7 years now.
Probably.
And I have to personally say that for me is a no-brainer. That definitely makes a difference to my gut having that. Why does that work so well, Alison? I know you've told me before.
It's a prebiotic. It's going back to that gut microbiome that we were saying. It's a little bit like the fermented foods. Aloe becomes under that category, and it's giving the gut the nutrients it needs to flourish. The Japanese call it ishizaru. I think that's how you say it.
I won't ask you to spell that.
Which good, which means no need for a doctor.
Wow.
And I just think that speaks volumes. But any fermented food, so the kombuchas, the plain yogurt, kimchi, any of those, again, are really, really good because they are nurturing the gut. But again, make sure you don't get the ones with added sugar, please.
Okay. Alison, it's so obvious that you care very much about the well-being of people. And, listeners, I hope that you found, this helpful, plenty of tips there to take up on that. I know that I'll certainly be implementing those in my life. Folks, don't be afraid to add any comments. I always welcome that. So this is going to be on my YouTube channel, Sheila's YouTube channel, and on social media. Obviously, it's going to be on your usual podcasts, where they go out to Spotify, Apple. Please don't be afraid to add your own comments, because I'm a firm believer in us all helping each other. So
absolutely,
especially if you've got kind of like the top 3 tips, because I know people are just so kind of information overload. So before we go, top 3 tips, Alison.
Okay, all right. Try to unprocess your diet. All right. Try to eat as natural, whole foods as you possibly can. All right. Spend some time planning what you're going to be eating. All right. So that if you've got a busy week, that you're going to be traveling, or that you've got parents' evenings or a kids' concert or anything like that. Plan so that you can be prepared for that. And most of all, enjoy your food. Sit down with the family and enjoy the food. Don't feel guilty. Sit down and enjoy it, because food is one of life's biggest pleasures. And, it not only nourishes our body and our brain, but it can also be a wonderful community activity.
Yeah, absolutely, Alison. My top 3 tips are: listen to Alison, and listen to Alison. Okay, so there we go, folks. Alison, thank you so much. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, I have mentioned about the aloe gel. I don't always do that in podcasts, but it's something I've had for so many years, and with what we're talking about, that I wanted to mention that. But
Thank you.
If people want to get in contact with you, Alison, if there's something you've said to think, you know what, I'd like to pick Alison's brains about that.
Oh, of course. Any questions? Happy to chat.
How can they get in contact with you?
LinkedIn, and then I've got my own website, so www.foreveralison.com.
Okay.
All right. And also on LinkedIn, they can find me and just send me a message, and I'll happily have that conversation. It would be lovely. It'd be my pleasure.
So again, listen to Alison. Okay. Alison, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
You're really most welcome. All right. I'm now going to go and find myself a glass of red wine, I think.
I bet you are. Okay. I might think twice about that Galaxy bar. Okay. I'll have pumpkin seeds instead.
Aldi's dark chocolate is pretty good.
Oh,
other supermarkets are
yeah,
available.
yeah. She's on commission for that, folks.
Yes.
Okay, listen, thanks again, Alison. We'll see you soon.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Sheila.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Counsellor Convos with Sheila McMahon. If you've enjoyed this episode, consider checking out her YouTube channel or pop on her website, mindmanagementforyou.com.